Alright, guys, this is Engineering Economics, Chapter 2. So, the objectives of this chapter, we will be defining various cost concepts that we will be using the rest of the other chapters. And then we will provide specific examples of how and why these engineering cost concepts are important. We will also provide some examples on problem solving using these different concepts. And then one of the most important thing that we will be learning here is how to do an estimate. So we will be defining engineering cost estimating, explain the three types of engineering estimates, as well as difficulties that are encountered in making cost estimates. And then we will use some common mathematical estimating models in estimating, and then discussing the impact of the learning curve. And also we will be learning the relationship between cost estimating and estimating project benefits. And lastly, we will learn how to draw cash flow diagrams. So some economic terminologies that we will encounter here include fixed cost. Fixed costs are defined as constant and unchanging cost as the volume of the product change. So even if the volume is low or high, the cost is constant. While variable costs, on the other hand, change as the output changes or the volume of the product changes. Fixed and variable costs are used to find the break-even value between cost and revenue. Remember that revenue is one of the main objectives of engineering economic analysis is to maximize revenue while minimizing the cost. And then marginal cost is the cost of the product if you have to add one more unit, while the average cost is the total cost divided by the number of units. Then we have sunk costs. Sunk costs result from past decisions, and sunk costs should not influence the analysis toward current and future opportunities because they are costs that are related with past. So that's why it's called sunk. Opportunity cost, on the other hand, involve the benefit that is foregone when we choose to use resources in one activity instead of the other. So if we have two alternatives, if we choose the other alternative, the alternative that wasn't chosen, the cost for that one is called the opportunity cost. Then you have recurring cost. Those are planned and anticipated expenses. And then non-recurring costs are one-of-a-kind costs that are often difficult to anticipate. Incremental costs are economic consequences associated with the differences between two choices of action. So what are the cost difference between two alternatives? Then you have book costs or cash cost are also known as out-of-pocket cost, or there is an exchange of cash. Book costs, on the other hand, are costs that do not result in the exchange of money, but rather are listed in the accounting books, thereby the name book cost. So these are the different terminologies that we will encounter in engineering economics. So fixed cost, variable costs, marginal cost, average cost, sunk cost, opportunity cost, recurring cost, non-recurring cost, incremental cost, cash cost, and book cost. And we will look at some examples to demonstrate the definitions of these different types of terminologies. Okay, so let's look at this first example here. So one of your firm's supplier discount prices for large quantities, the first 1,000 parts are $13 each. The next 2,000 are $12 each. All parts in excess of 3,000 cost $11 each. So what are the average cost and marginal cost per part for the following quantities? So there are these different. So what if we order 500 parts or we order 1,500 parts or 2,500 or 3,500? You will just I will just illustrate the first two, 500 and 1,500. So let's say for the 500, sorry. Okay. So 500 units. Let's say that the first 1,000 parts are $13 each, right? So for first 1,000 is $13 per unit. So for 500 parts times 13 per unit, we get, for a while, let me see here. So 500 times 13, we get $6,500. Okay, so what are the average costs? So the average cost per part is $6,500 divided by 500. So that is $13 per unit. So that is the average cost. And the marginal cost is, what is the cost for one more unit, is equal to $13 too. Because marginal cost is the cost for producing or getting one more unit. So let's look at example B. So example B is for 500 or 1,500 units. So for 1,500 units, the first 1,000, right? So the first 1,000 part is equal to $13 per unit. So that will give us $13,000. And then the next 500 is, for the next 2,000 will be $12 each. Okay, so 12 times 500, that will give us 6,000. So the total is 19,000, giving us an average cost of $19,000 divided by 1,500 unit. Okay, so 19,000 divided by 1,500 unit will give us $12.7 per unit. So that's the average. The marginal cost, what is the equivalent cost for getting one more, is $12 per unit. Okay, So I hope that this example illustrates the definition for average cost and the definition for marginal cost. Okay, now let's look at another example here. Oh, sorry. So the Federation of Student Societies of Engineering wants to offer a one-day training course to help students in job hunting and to raise funds. The organizing committee is sure that they can find alumni, local business people, and faculty to provide training at no charge. Thus, the main costs will be for space, for meals, handouts, and advertising. The organizers have classified the cost for room rental, room setup, and advertising as a fixed cost. So now here's the terminologies come in. Fixed cost. So fixed cost is for room rental, room setup, and advertising. So no matter the number of students that would take advantage of this opportunity of this training, the room rental, room setup, and advertising is the same, is constant. They also have included the meals for the speakers as a fixed cost. So the total is $225 is pegged to a room that will hold 40 people. So if demand is higher, the fixed cost will also increase. The variable cost for food and bound handouts will be $20 per student. So now here comes the other term, variable cost. Because as the student number increases, the cost will also increase because it is per unit. The organizing committee believes that $35 is about the right price to match value to students with their budgets. Now, since the federation has not offered training courses before, they are unsure how many students will reserve seats. So this problem is asking us to develop equations for the federation's total cost and total revenue and determine the number of registration that would be needed for revenue to equal cost, meaning that they will be having a break even. Okay, and so we will look at this break even definition here in a little while, and let's try to tackle this example here. Okay, so let's look at what are the costs. Okay, so for fixed cost, we have is equal to 225. And we have the variable cost, which is equal to how much is $20 per student. So $20 per student times X, where X is equal to the number of students. So now that we have identified the different costs, so you have fixed cost, we have variable cost at $20 per student multiplied by the number of students represented by the variable X. So now we could calculate the total cost. So the total cost is equal to the fixed cost plus the variable cost. Okay? So that is equal to 225 plus 20x. And since they are trying to give this one to students at $35 per person, the total revenue is equal to 35 times the number of students. Okay, so now you have the total revenue, and you have the total cost. Now, the problem is asking us to develop an equation that will determine the number of registration that would be needed for revenue to equal cost. So now we have an expression for revenue. We also have an expression for cost. So we can set up this equation. Total revenue is equal to total cost, right? So revenue is 35x is equal to 225 plus 20x. Now we will solve for x, and solving for x will give us 35x minus 20x equals 225. So x will give us 15 students. So you see here that at 15 students, we are at break even, and the total capacity of the room is 40 students. So even if we get 20 students, then they will be able to profit from the training. Okay? So now here we will look at a very useful tool in engineering analysis, and that is looking at the costs with respect to the number of units or the number of persons. So let's try to plot this one. So the x-axis will be the number of units, or let's say students. Okay, and so we'll plot this one into 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, because 40 is the max. And then we on the y-axis is the cost. It can be both the revenue and okay. So we have $200, $400. So this one cost is in dollars, and 600, 800, and then we have 1,000. Okay. Now we can now plot. So first we will plot this equation, the total cost equation. So let me rewrite the total cost here. So total cost is 225 plus 20x. So let me write here. Total cost is equal to 225 plus 20x. So if we can say that y equals 20x plus 225, so now this is an equation, the line where your total cost is your y, or this one is your y-intercept. Does that make sense? 225 is your y-intercept. So let's look at the y-intercept here at 225. So that's where 225 is. And then 20x. So let's just say 20 times 10 is 200. But you have to add that with 225, so it will be 425. So it will be right here. And so this equation now, so this is now the line there. So that's the line for the total cost. So that's the total cost line. So the total revenue, on the other hand, what's the total revenue is 35x. So let's write the total revenue here. Is 35x. Okay, so the total revenue, we will then plot that one. So at 35 and 10 is 350, but that starts at 0, so we could plot this line that there. Okay, so what we did a while ago is we had the equation, which is this one here, where we have the total revenue equals the total cost. And that one is, go back, that one is right there, which is 15. Okay? And so 15 is what we call as the break-even point. So break-even meaning that the revenue is equal to the total cost. So beyond that one is profit. So this one here, the difference between the revenue and the cost is profit. And below that one, the difference between the revenue and the cost is a loss. Okay? Does that make sense? So if you are looking at this lecture right now, so this one will be your, so try to screenshot this one. This will be your homework, and I will collect this one on Friday. Okay, so that ends our lecture for today. So try to study this one using the concept that we just did. So a privately owned summer camp for youngsters has the following data for a 12-week session. So the charge per camper is $480 per week. Fixed costs are shown, variable cost per camper, and the capacity is 200 campers. So A, develop mathematical relationship for total cost and total revenue. B, what is the total number of campers that will allow the camp to just break even? C, what is the profit or loss for the 12-week session? And D, what are marginal and average costs per camper at 80% capacity? And so answer this one in sheet of paper. You can use an engineering paper, graphing paper, or just a yellow paper. And I will collect that on Friday. So if you are listening to this lecture, I will not post this homework, but I will be collecting this homework on Friday. So see you on Friday, guys, and thank you very much.